scholarly event of this academic year 23-24. My name is Dr. Servet Yatin, and I have the honor of serving as the Provost and Chief Academic Officer of Quincy College. As I look at the audience today, I not only see familiar faces, but many new ones. For those of you who came last year's event, you know what to expect. For those of you who are here for the first time, let me share. Tonight, you will not be disappointed. Tonight, you will get just a taste of the talent and the energy that abounds Quincy College. This evening's speakers, all professional musicians, are currently teaching or have recently taught at Quincy College. This event is not just a way to showcase our talented faculty, but it is also a way for us to say thank you for all your support. Tonight also provides an opportunity for much needed moments to come together as a community, because nothing in the world brings people together like music. Before introducing our speakers, I would like to thank the ingenious and forward-thinking members of the Scholarship Teaching and Learning team. This team, who not only established this event, but whose choice of subjects and speakers also seems to meet the moment. Members of Scholarship Teaching and Learning team, please stand for a round of applause for putting together once again such perfect event. Thank you. I also want to thank some distinguished members of our community, including President Richard DiCristofaro, who has been such a champion for this event. Thank you, President. I also would like to thank the other distinguished guests among you. And finally, to all of you, of course, thank you for coming to this important event. Now, a few housekeeping items. Please silence your cell phones for the remaining of the evening, unless you want to give a scholarly conversation on your ringtone. Restrooms are outside near the entrance, and in case of emergency, please follow the red exit signs. Hopefully there won't be any. This evening, 3 speakers will share their passion for music. Each session will be followed by Q&A. To introduce the first, I'm going to ask a question. Who among you has ever heard of the Mbira? Nice. How many of you had to look it up? Yeah, I certainly did. The Mbira is the national instrument of Zimbabwe. And for over 1,000 years, it has been used in traditional ceremonies to access healing and ancestral wisdom. Dr. Richard Grimes, our first speaker, has been playing this instrument since 1999. As a musician and an educator, Dr. Grimes takes every opportunity to demonstrate how music reflects and then transforms the world around us. An adjunct faculty member at Quincy College since 2020, Richard earned degrees from the Peabody Institute, Yale University, and the New York University. He's an internationally renowned author, composer, and performer, featured as a guest artist with over 50 major symphony orchestras throughout the North America and Europe. Additionally, his ensemble, Cordis, formed in Boston in 2008, has enjoyed both critical and popular success. Tonight, Dr. Grimes is here to not just share his cultural and musical knowledge, but to lift and heal our spirits in a way only possible through music. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Richard Grimes.
this is a very forgiving instrument. I'm going to talk about different iterations, different versions of the mbira. When I started, when I lived in, I'm a percussionist by trade, and percussionists are all about sound and all about color. So I was always very curious. When I was a student at NYU, they had on the top level, I don't know why they put the percussion department on the top level of the building, I don't know, because all of the instruments are very heavy. But the floor beneath us, they had a music therapy major, and they had like 200 gongs, and they were pitched, and just, I loved it. So when that was the first time I ever thought, maybe instruments can be more than just a drum set and a marimba, and I love the drum set and I love the marimba, but maybe it can go further than that. Maybe there are voices that can be brought into this culture. If you bring it in an indigenous way, that's righteous, but it doesn't always connect with this culture. So what I started to do at that point was take instruments on that connected with me, including the mbira, and bring them first, respect the culture, understand the culture. In many instances, I would go on site and study, and then bring it into more of an honest Western vernacular that I would speak. So the piece I just played, that's not Zimbabwean. That's a Western melody, Western harmonies. But it's based on the idea of the color and the timbre. So the first thing I do is go into the culture and study the culture. There are basically two phases of research in Shona culture. Shona culture is the Zimbabwean culture that the mbira comes from. We call it thumb piano or kalimba. The first iteration of it was in the 1950s. Hugh Tracy was an ethnographer, and he lived in Africa, and he went to study the Shona people. Shona people are Zimbabwe, Western Mozambique, in that area. So at that time it was Rhodesia, but he went and he studied, and he came back with an instrument that he called the kalimba, kind of like the marimba, something similar to that. And it turned out to be a thumb piano. And at the very end of my time this evening, I'm going to play a version of that thumb piano. But this is kind of a take on that. So this mbira, there are several types of mbiras, and they're used for different purposes. This one is called nyunga, and nyunga means sparkle. Mbira means voice, so sparkly voice. And typically, school-age children, maybe, I don't know, 8-ish to 15-ish, would play this kind of an instrument. Sometimes if people would play it on the riverside. It doesn't have a spiritual connection. It's more pop, it's more fun. Now, in the 50s, when Hugh Tracy was studying, all of the mbiras, all of the kalimbas that he was looking at had one row. This has 2 rows, and I did that. This is also, as I said, tuned to a Western scale, so I have modified this. It has several elements that are indigenous to the Shona culture, and several elements that are connected more into Western culture. So, I want to talk about the design of this instrument. It's the most basic one. These are the keys right here, or the tongues. And typically, because I love you guys, I grew my nails out for 2.5 weeks. I've been growing my nails. Sometimes people use banjo picks or whatever, but not me. No way. My wife loves it, not. So you pluck. It's a down pluck. And this, if you guys can see, everybody can see this, it's carved out here, right? Can everybody see that? That is one of what will ultimately be 2 resonating chambers. So when I pluck one of these, the sound wave comes down through here. It's channeled down through here. Then at the bottom, you can see these, right? This is just hammered metal. There's one piece of hammered metal on the bottom, and then another piece of copper, hammered copper on the top. So when I play it, it kind of focuses the sound wave in to give you that rattle, sort of like on the I think the final presentation is guitar, yeah? Kind of like distortion on a guitar. It's the same idea. That kind of an idea. And that is indigenous to the sound of these instruments. At the very end, I'm going to show you a Western version that is a legitimate kalimba. It doesn't have the 2 rows, but this one I wanted to first bring out. The second mbira that I want to talk about is, let me see where my notes are here. Well, this is mbira Zavid Zamu. So mbira means voice, and Zavid Zamu means of the gods. Right, you remember this from class, yeah? Mbira this is one that is the most common in Zimbabwe. This is kind of the Rolls Royce of Mbiras. And it also has, if you guys can see, it digs out here. So this is the first resonating chamber. And here are the caps. On this one, the other one, we had a metal on the bottom and copper on the top. This one, it's just a cheap piece of metal, and these are just bottle caps. So you can hear that, right? Okay. With Mbira Dzividzamu, Mbira Dzividzamu is used for ceremonies in Zimbabwe. And I'm going to talk about a few of those ceremonies in a moment. But this is the resonating chamber, the equivalent of an amplifier. This is what makes it loud. When I go and play inside of this, you can't see anything. When I would study, Cosmas Magaya was my teacher, and when I would watch him perform, it was wonderful to hear and really tediously boring to watch, because you would just see somebody going like this, and you couldn't see anything that they were doing. And as a percussionist, one thing I love about percussion is being able to watch the physicality of it, you know, and I kind of miss that. So I'm going to play a little bit of this for you, and then I'm going to talk about a few of the ceremonies that it goes to. The piece that I'm going to play, this on the right side is where the melody happens, and on the left side is the bass. These are basically octaves, and then here on the right side, you do upstrokes and downstrokes with your first finger and your thumb. So I'm going to play a piece called Nemamu Sasa. Nemamu Sasa is kind of like the equivalent in Western culture, maybe the Beatles' Let It Be. It's a very common piece. It means meat and blood, and it's used at many ceremonies. The melody is... First I'll play the right notes. Oh, can you guys see over here?
Can you use the mic?
If I use the mic, I think they're not going to see it. So, in an Mbira ensemble, there are two types of Mbira. One is the lead, and the other is the background. So what I just played would be the background. It would be the repetitive pattern, and then there would be a lead part. The kutsinira is the lead part, and the kushara is the background. So I played kind of the foundational background part, and then there would be a lead part. In an Mbira ensemble, Exhibit A, so here we have the gourds. Right now, I'll get at that in a minute. Right in the middle, these two instruments, these are hosho. These are shakers. Traditionally, they would have indigenous mung beans inside of them, but I just put popcorn seeds because it was easier and a little bit higher pitch. So, I don't want to get too music speak, but in music we have a term called hemiola. Does anyone in this room know what a hemiola is? Okay. Hemiola is basically 2 against 3. So this hand is going to go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and this hand's going to do 2. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. A lot of drum beats have that.
Polyrhythm.
Yeah. Yeah. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2. So that's what they do on the hosho. There's one hosho player. And if you heard the melody, da 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 da, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. Does that kind of make sense? Like one-man band here. So these are the hosho. There's only one hosho player. You never double the hosho part. There's only one. As Exhibit A, there's always just one hosho player. Then with Mbira, there are 2 parts. There is the kutsinira part is the lead part, and then there's a kushara part, which is kind of more of a foundational part underneath that. Typically in an Mbira ceremony, there is also, and I'm going to guess this is the soloist, there's also a soloist. The soloist usually has, in music we call it legato, meaning a long, sustained line, because everything is very percussive and da 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 da. So there's a nice long line. The vocalist is the most common thing that I have ever seen within Birra ensembles. A vocalist, sometimes a flute could be, or some kind of an instrument like that, that pitch-wise is on top and can kind of ride on top of all of the rhythmic things that are going on foundationally. So the piece Meat and Blood can be used for many different ceremonies. Now I'm actually going to read from my notes because I'm going to go through a few of these ceremonies. The first ceremony is, drum roll please. Thank you. It's all fun and games until I break my glasses. You laugh now. This will be a thing. The presentation changes very quickly when the glasses break. The Meshavi ceremony is the first one. I'm going to kind of go through. How am I doing on time? Who's keeping time?
What's it? 5 minutes.
I'm at 5?
No, you have 7 minutes.
Okay, so let's get through this quickly. The Meshavi ceremony, there are 3 I'm going to talk about. Meshavi ceremony, this instrument is always used whenever they have ceremonies. Birra Zivitsaru is the instrument in Shona culture that is used. So Meshavi translates to mean spirit. It's one of the most common ceremonies in Shona culture. In this ceremony, members of the village who have passed are summoned through music to dance and connect with the living. In every one of these ceremonies, they have a spiritual liaison. In some cases, and we'll talk about that in a moment, it's a family member. In some cases, it's just somebody that has been appointed from the village, an elder member of the village. In the Meshavi ceremony, it's just general. When there are grievances, when there are problems, just general problems, they have a Meshavi ceremony. And what happens is everybody gathers in a location like that, and typically in a community center, or old school would be a hut. They gather in that, and the Birra starts playing. Usually, I've always heard that there's a locally brewed beer. Like every ceremony, no matter what the ceremony is for, there's locally brewed beer, and sometimes other things are made as well by elder females from the village. So in this, the spiritual liaison states the grievances, states the problems to the deceased. And singing by all is accompanied by the ensemble, followed by traditional dancing. Eventually in the evening, the liaison becomes possessed. And when the liaison becomes possessed, all bets are off. So I said there are 2 periods. In the 50s was the first period of study. The second one is by a guy named Paul Berliner, who I've had the privilege of meeting and working with a bit. Paul went to these ceremonies, and he was not allowed inside the village, but he was outside of the hut. He would sit outside of the community center, and he could hear the music. Eventually, he says, it's about 2 or 3 in the morning, he's asleep, and the door busts open, and somebody runs out naked, and he's screaming, and he runs into the woods, and 20 minutes later, he runs back. That was the liaison, and that was the moment where the liaison was possessed, and came back with some kind of a message. Whatever was happening in the culture, there was some wisdom from the deceased about what to do. So that's a very common. The Kurova Gava is another ceremony that's also very common, and that's where you bring someone who has passed away, you bring them back home. In the Kurova Gava ceremony, somebody passes away, and they always wait 1 year. When they pass, they wait 1 year, they bury them, and they wait 1 year, and they hold this ceremony, and this is to connect the deceased with ancestors of their family or of the village who have also passed away. So 1 year goes by. Then they do the obligatory locally brewed beer, and they have a ceremony, and everybody comes and everybody dances. Then somebody in the village has picked, usually it's a cow, sometimes it's a bull, some type of an animal, and they will take the beer and they will pour it on the animal's head. And if the animal shakes it off, that means that the spirit, after that year, the spirit has connected with the family and they are with their family. If it doesn't, they come back 1 year later and they do it again, and they do it until it does happen. But I will tell you, usually, and I can't say this officially, but usually when you pour something on an animal, it doesn't take it lightly. So that is in the final ceremony. I'm going to quickly try to jump on this, is the Mokorere ceremony. Okay, so there are 2 seasons in Zimbabwe. There is the summer, which is November, November to kind of February, and then there's the winter, which starts in March. Winter is when harvest is. So when harvest is happening, everybody needs to be there, and the rain needs to be there. If there is no rain, this ceremony is called similar to the others. It's kind of a prayer for rain. And they get together, they summon the ancestral spirits, they say we need rain, and if rain doesn't happen within 1 week, they do the ceremony again, and they do it again until rain comes and the crops happen. And I'll tell you quickly, my teacher, Cosmas Magaya, the fellow who taught me Mbira, Paul Berliner introduced me to Cosmas, who was his cultural liaison when he did his study in Zimbabwe. Cosmas would come over during the season when there wasn't harvest. He would come to the U.S. and a few other iconic Mbira players would come over as well. Beulah Daiko, a few others, Ifat Majoro, they would come over and they would teach people like me. And that's how they would earn money, so that when it's harvest, they could come back and they could harvest their food and they would have money to help support their village. I know I'm up against the clock, so I am going to, right, I have like 2 minutes, something like that? 3.
4 or 5.
You guys hear this?
Yes.
All right. So, I talked about a kalimba. Hugh Tracy in the 50s came back with an instrument he called the kalimba. This is an electrified version of the kalimba, and as a nod to the guitar presentation you're going to see in a little bit.
It looks like a guitar.
It looks like a guitar. Thank you. I'm in town all evening. And yeah, so this I play in, Servat was saying I play in a group called Chordus, and we have all our instruments, and there's a point in one of the pieces where we all stop except the pianist, and we all have one of these, and we play this kind of interlocking rhythm. So I'm going to just play a little bit of, this is kind of my nod to, this is where things are today. And I'll just say quickly that being a white privileged American going into Zimbabwe and into Shona culture, you want to be honest. You want to be honest when you come back. There are things that you learn and there are notes that you take and you share that experience, but you also want to be honest when you start playing the instrument. Play something that is honest to your background. Don't, I don't want to pretend like I understand the spiritual connections that they understand. So out of respect, I take it into a vernacular that makes a lot more sense with what I know. Questions?
Yeah, what's the largest size audience that can traditionally be played to? Because I think there's volume limitations on that, right? Or are they really large versions of the instrument?
You're talking about the thing I just played?
Yeah, well, not that one, because that's electric.
I was going to say, the way we turn it up is...
Yeah.
Yeah. So with Mbira, how can you do that? This is what they do. I never actually showed you guys very quickly. This is a prop stick. This is called Mastigo. And this is the Deze. The Deze is, I used to have calabash gourds. They break all the time when I go on tour, so I got a fiberglass one. Cosmas, that was what Cosmas said. He's like, what are you, silly American? So I need to sit down. Can I sit on this?
Yeah, we can grab a chair.
I'm good.
Okay.
All right, so here, this is a prop stick. This is Mastigo, and what I do is I put it up against the bridge of this instrument
Yep.
and the edge of the shell. I'll do it, and then I'll show you. So you kind of do it like this. Wouldn't that be funny if I broke it? All right, so this is what it looks like when it's inside the shell. All right? And you're going to get to hear some of the resonating quality of it. I'll play No Mama Salsa again.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
And then this is what it looks like inside. So this, we talked about the resonating chamber that brings out the higher. This gourd is also a resonating chamber that brings out, you heard it, the low bass, that low kind of rumble sound.
Thanks. Real quick, since it's called The Voice of the Ancestors, and you said the Mbira that we have now emerges in the 1950s.
Okay, so there are two, just quickly, I'll
Yeah.
say there, 1950s was the first. Hugh Tracy was an ethnographer.
Yeah.
He went over there and he brought back the kalimba, which is
Oh, the
something
kalimba.
closely related to this, something more simple.
Right.
Then Paul Berliner went in the 80s and he did a second research and he really studied the Shona culture and talked about the ceremonies, and so he went in a much more, kind of a much deeper
So
Oriental lecture.
how old is the Mbira is my question. I mean, it doesn't date back to the 80s, it dates back before that. And what did they use before they used the current materials to make
Before they had iron?
Before they had iron, yeah.
Right. I don't know.
I mean, and I was wondering if it was related at all to wooden,
The Mbira-
wooden tone drumming or anything like that.
Well, it's a part of Shona culture then. It's been around for centuries, but it's a good question. Before they had iron ore, before they had metal, what did they use? I'm not sure. I don't know.
The other question I wanted to ask real quick is, what are the time signatures of the things you just played?
Hemiola, so it's 2 and 3, so it's 1, 2, and 3. And the thing I played on the electric is just me making it up. That's
That was it
American.
6/8 or something like that? It was like
I think I was going between 3 and 7.
3 and 7.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, all right, thanks. All right.
Thank you.
Question back here?
Yeah, I kind of was playing it, and it sort of played itself, and then I'm like, well, that was kind of cool, so I just repeat it.
It does. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
You were mentioning the ensembles. Are those set? Like, is there, like, we would have bands though? Like, is there, and how are they related to the ritual aspect? Are the religious leaders also part of the ensembles? And are there different ensembles for different rituals?
Okay, so I'm going to go backwards, and you just catch the questions I forget. Are the ensembles are not religious? They're not religion wouldn't be the word I would use. Spiritual.
Yeah.
They're not spiritual. Not spiritually based, but there is a liaison. So the spiritual connection of the Mbira is the music is supposed to summon the ancestor.
Right.
This is supposed to be the voice that summons, and then the liaison becomes possessed. But the liaison is never part of the Mbira ensemble. The Mbira ensemble is they're always just musicians.
So the liaison would be somebody has that title,
Think of it
perhaps?
like this.
Or is
Think
the
of it-
spiritual leader?
Yeah.
Is the shaman or the spiritual
Yeah,
leader?
there's a name for it. I didn't say it. Let me see if I can find it in my notes. Dun, 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 dun. What is yeah, there is a name for the liaison, but I am not seeing it right here. Mashavi. Mashavi means spirit, so that's the name. Ask me the first question you had.
It was if there are certain. The question was about if the ensembles are always the same, or if they
Yes.
mix it up, or.
They're always the same. The only thing that has a little bit of variation is the soloist. If there is a soloist, if there is a soloist, sometimes it'll be different people, but yeah. Otherwise, it's always the same lineup. Yeah, and there are people in the village that are kind of iconic, like Cosmas Magaya. That's their gig. So yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Grimes, for such a beautiful performance. We all enjoyed it. Dear guests, many years ago, and many miles away from Zimbabwe and Mbira, a new instrument appeared in the United States. From jazz to heavy metal to pop, the electric guitar has played a prominent role in world music. It may have gone out of fashion, but Chris Gambardella is here to tell us that it is back. Chris graduated from the Marist College with a degree in communications, and we were fortunate to have him as an adjunct faculty member at Quincy College for over 10 years. His passion is teaching history of rock, but he also taught appreciation of music and development of American jazz. Chris has been an active musician throughout the 90s and has played guitar since 1988. He is an enthusiastic historian of music, specifically the rock genre, both past and present. Please welcome Chris Gambardella in Shredding the Pop Ball.
Yeah, you're good. Yeah, we're good. Yeah, Dr. Grimes was very high art. I'm a little bit lower art, but very relevant art. Guitar-based rock music was in the mainstream pop landscape for a long time. We go back to the 50s and the birth of rock and roll, the classic rock era, 60s and 70s. In the 80s, hair metal brought it, this term shred that is going to go back, well, I'll refer back to where you're playing very fast but very precisely. And throughout that, even the pop charts saw rock instrumentation up through like the late 2000s. I'm Generation X, so in college, grunge was what I came up on. Those were bands like Nirvana, the big ones, Nirvana, Soundgarden, Pearl Jam. Kind of bleak stuff, very loud. It was bleak because there was a massive heroin problem at that time, and that's why most of those artists aren't with us anymore. But we see Nirvana t-shirts all the time still. That is carried on into the culture where the shirt almost is more relevant than the music to young people at this point. I'm biased as a guitar player because I kind of want the guitar to stomp all over everything. Guitarists are a bit narcissistic that way. It's like, what about the guitar? What about my volume? And that was, it was prevalent in rock music for, that's the vibe of it. After the grunge era came this genre called nu metal. It was detuned 7-string guitars, very heavy music, and it had an influx of hip hop. A lot of these bands had DJs in them. A band like Limp Bizkit, very rap heavy. We had bands like Korn, also, kind of hip hop rhythms in there, slap bass. After that, in the early 2000s, there was the garage era, this garage revival. They were called the bands, the Strokes, the Hives, the Vines. It was kind of groupthink in the music industry. Well, I guess if one of them works, all of them will work. Very stripped down, kind of Manhattan post-punk, punk rock vibes. After that came the third wave of emo. There was a first wave in the 80s, a second wave in the 90s. The third wave came in the early 2000s, and it also brought about guys in skinny jeans talking about their emotions, which a lot of guys didn't like. And they'd say, go watch the Pats! Like that was more where they were at. But this was huge in mainstream rock radio for quite a while. These emotional lyrics, very loud, aggressive music. Shortly after that, rock radio died, and electronic music stepped in. We watched these great Boston radio stations, WFNX, WAAF, WBCN, go away, and they didn't come back. Pop became very much EDM based. EDM means electronic dance music. That was the 2010s. Like this electronic dance music sound where it was all these superstar DJs. That was the landscape, and so pop music adapted to that. In the indie rock world, so I say indie, that's the independent label, underground music that is still alive and well, but that's like the cool kids know about it. There was a producer, I saw a great tweet from him, the guy named Linus of Hollywood. He said, wow, indie seems to have been reduced to a woman singer, and a guy on a laptop doing his taxes next to her. Like, and it wasn't the most dynamic thing to watch in a live setting because, you know, guitar players stomping all over everything. We go back to the days of Jimi Hendrix smashing guitars, Kurt Cobain smashing his guitars. Like, you know, you had something to smash. You're not going to smash your MacBook. There's not the same vibe to that. Also combined, and I noticed this, like, there was, you know, a lot of young people thought, well, this is music by old white dudes made for old white dudes. This doesn't speak to me anymore. And it did go quiet. I mean, alive and well on the underground, but in the mainstream, in the pop landscape, it just went away. Like, you know, you'd hear all the rock guys complain, the Grammys don't have a single guitar in them. No, they don't. Things have moved on. But that's fine. Music changes, art evolves. The interesting thing is what I'm going to showcase, it's not a lot of white dudes. It's certainly not old white dudes. The movers and shakers in this revival of electric guitar. It's a lot of women making noise, and good noise, big noise, getting recognized. And the landscape, I don't know how long it's gonna change, but right now it is undeniable. The guitar has returned to popular music. But first I have to mention some old white dudes. Blink-182, a pop punk band from the late 90s, had a big comeback. Their guitar player came back, they had a reunion, and in their early 50s, they blew up YouTube when they came back. They blew up streaming when they came back. Popular music is very ageist. So for people in their early 50s to be making music that young people are clamoring to hear, new music, it's wild. And that pop punk sound, so it's punk rock with a more accessible melody. There's more distinct melodies to it. That is very influential to this moment, and they haven't really changed their sound in 25 years. So it's kind of amazing that this sound is so relevant now. In terms of influence, there was a white rapper named Machine Gun Kelly who reinvented himself as a pop punk guy. Had Travis Barker, the drummer of Blink-182, play on a track. It blew up. This sound is working, and young people are suddenly hearing guitars again. And that's great. It's, you know, for me, I'm like, you know, people say, oh, what right does he have? He's not a punk rocker. How about young people are interested in this music again? Great. That's where I'm looking at it. Cynical 20-year-old me would be like, oh, it's BS. Open-minded 51-year-old me, great. Bring this to the young people. Like let them be into this. All this sets the stage for what I believe, and what many have said, one of the most influential bands of the time, which is Paramore. This is a band that came up in the mid-2000s, and their influence really we're seeing their influence of their early career. What's speaking to young people now is the stuff they did in their first couple of albums in the mid-aughts. Emo is having a bit of a resurgence right now. It's kind of like classic rock for younger people, which is hilarious to me because when I started teaching history of rock, it was brand new. So now I'm like, wowzers. But here we are, and young people are into this music. Their singer, Hayley Williams, is a mega star right now. Like, this isn't just me saying it. She is mega. Big voice, big melodies. And that singing style has touched a lot of young singers. They came up in that third wave of emo. They kind of got lumped into it. And yeah, the lyrics were angsty. You know, a lot of broken relationships and anger about it and sadness about it. And, you know, their influence, Pitchfork, The New Yorker, NPR, they've all written about how influential this band is right now in this landscape. Still very successful. Just released an album earlier in the year. It was more on the pop, even R&B side of things, but bands evolve because you're gonna get so bored making the same sound album after album after album, unless you're AC/DC. Then you've made the same album 12 times. but they can't deviate, they're stuck doing it. So this clip, you'll see the haircuts, and that was part of the look. Like, a lot of my students looked like this back in this era. But big melodies, big guitars, and this is more just a fun pop song. So here's our big vocals, our big distorted guitars, full voice singing, like really, from the gut. And look at those haircuts. This was, that clip has 224 million views. So this isn't just me saying this was big. This was massive. So they're streaming, I don't know their streaming numbers, but I'm assuming it's in the billions. What's cool about this? So, well, all sorts of stuff's cool about this, but the next artist I'm going to mention, in such a phenomenon of the moment, this group of young women of color, LGBT women, at around age 16 and 17, they met up in the comment section of a Paramore YouTube video and started discussing music, and then found each other on social media and eventually formed a band. And that band is called Meet Me at the Altar. And they have made it. They actually have ended up on the same label as Paramore. It's called Fueled by Ramen, which hosts all sorts of bands, Fall Out Boy, Panic at the Disco, currently 21 Pilots. Like, these are big bands, so this is a big label. And this group of young women who met in a Paramore video comment section are touring. They just did an arena tour with a band called 5 Seconds of Summer. Big deal stuff. And the vocals are what are very Paramore-esque, in my opinion. The guitars are much more metallic, like metal metallic. The drums seem very programmed, so I'm not keen on the drum sound. That's definitely a product of the digital age. But big melodies, big vocals, fun. So, you always hear representation matters. Boy, does it. It certainly matters in music. There you go. It's just young people taking something they heard, reinventing it, making it their own. But it has the humble roots. On a much larger scale. So this was Paramore, well, this one's, 270 million views, Misery Business. This was Paramore's probably breakthrough hit. And this is the angsty one, just about a really bad breakup. But still, those gigantic vocals. And sometimes influence crosses over into copying. Wow, already? Oh, can I have more because I had technical difficulties? Olivia Rodrigo came out. She had a single called Good For You. It was inspired by Paramore. Until they realized it's the same chord progression in the same key. Oh no. And this is after it got a couple of 100 million streams. And then Hayley Williams and Paramore's guitar player got half the songwriting credits on a video that got 400 million views. So, younger me, they're ripping it off. Older me, it happens. Sam Smith's Stay With Me was Tom Petty's I Won't Back Down.
Right.
Tom Petty got half the songwriting. It happens. Pop music doesn't work with really complex melodies and chords, so sometimes it overlaps and you don't realize it till it's too late. But this chorus, it's the chorus to Misery Business. That's a 20-year-old. She was 18 when she did that. What she's brought back is pop rock on a massive scale. This is a very young audience now hearing guitar-based music. This is a lot of young girls saying, oh, cool, I want to play guitar, I want to play bass, I want to play drums. I say, great. So I don't care that it was derivative. she was inspired by something. They wrote it, got huge, excellent. It's just interesting, like that pop rock sound. I mean, Kelly Clarkson, Pink, Katy Perry, they all came up with rock bands backing them when they started out. Guitars were the backbone of their touring sound, and then it went away. It got replaced by this. So it came back, and another megastar really ran with it. Demi Lovato, whose sound in that mid-late 2000s period was very much guitar-based. She plays guitar. She played it live. When she came out with a Best Of collection, she reworked it. It was called Revamped. And reworked her pop hits as rock songs, hard rock songs. Like, her guitar player in the beginning of this is a woman named Nita Strauss. She played with Alice Cooper. Alice Cooper is the king of shock rock. When you see like theatrical, crazy stuff on a stage, that guy invented it. And can still, like, especially in Japan, you can sell out arenas. Like, major influence on music. There would have been no Marilyn Manson without Alice Cooper. Not that we like Marilyn Manson anymore because he's been canceled. But Demi got this killer shredder guitar player who really knows how to command a stage. And she played on this album, and you're hearing these pop songs reinvented as quite hard rock songs. And what's cool about this, this was when Nita was still in the touring band. They're a Rock in Rio in front of probably 200,000 people. 200,000 young pop fans seeing a full-blown hard rock show. Great. I mean, that's a classic rock and roll image. The singer with the guitar gunslinger, that goes back decades. Like, even we think of what Michael Jackson did on Beat It. His lead guitar player was Eddie Van Halen on that. Like, there's precedent for this. So, really cool stuff. This is a woman with 150 million Instagram followers. And she went ahead and said, I'm going to do a rock record for my Best Of. I say, great. I'm getting time. But I'll scoot along with this. Way out of left field. there was young rapper named Lil Yachty, accused of ruining hip hop by many. a lot of people don't like him. He was hanging with a guy named Kevin Parker, who is the band Tame Impala, Australian. Tame Impala started out doing psychedelic rock. That is a sound that is derived from 60s drug culture. It's really like disorienting, like heavily affected, pretty spacey stuff. Yachty guested on the Tame Impala track Breathe Deeper, which interestingly, Tame Impala went electronic in the second half of their career. So he's not even really doing guitar stuff, but Yachty was hanging with him and hanging with other musicians and like, I want to try this. And in the same time, he was listening to a lot of Pink Floyd, 70s progressive rock. So he released an album that stunned everyone, and it's still auto-tuned vocals. So that auto-tuned sound that's really popular in pop, in R&B, in hip-hop. But he's combining that with this proggy Pink Floyd sound. This is him on Saturday Night Live. Note, all-women backing band. Very cool. Because that was his intent. He's like, I'm bringing out an all-women band.
His response is on a clean heart. Both feet up on the ground, but his head's way in the sky.
Those of you familiar with Pink Floyd know this sound. Guitar players will know there's a lot of minor 7 chords in there. That was a Pink Floyd thing. Quickly, where it comes from? Well, I think it came from the Floyd album Animal. Here's the vibe. Similar, not the same. Very bleak. It's literally Orwellian, so not much more bleak than Orwell. Second half of Black Seminole has this breakdown in it.
Now.
Older audiences went nuts over this. It was like, wow, this is really happening. What was his influence there? Great Gig in the Sky, a meditation on death from 50 years ago. Similar, not the same. Is it derivative, or is it amazing that a young rapper wanted to do something like that? It wasn't career suicide. It could have been, but it wasn't. So it was an amazing risk. So I don't know where all this is going to go. My hope is a lot of young people hear this and say, gee, I'd like to pick up an instrument. I'd like to write something. That's my hope. It's not, this is just really like, will the art progress? We don't know. But what we know is the guitar is having a moment. So that's what I got for you. We'll see where it goes.
The music has the two things that I'd ask you to call attention to on the slide. The first is what's labeled the measurement of the peak of the wave, called the amplitude. And then the second aspect I'd ask you to take a look at is the concept of a cycle. And The cycles per second is what's called the frequency, or hertz. If we go out and we buy a computer today, one of the measurements that we consider is the speed of the computer in gigahertz, or billions of cycles per second. So we'll be referring back to these measurements. The other thing that is background information is, amazingly, a computer, for all that it does for us today, is really just a vast collection of switches, electronic switches. The transistor, invented in the 1940s by Bell Labs. Today's computers have billions of transistors, and it's just the way those switches are arranged that allows the computer to do all that it does. So because a switch can be on or off, we describe computer operations using ones and zeros. 1 means the switch is on, and 0 means the switch is off. Right? And so if we take a look at, if two computers were going to communicate, the signal would be, rather than an analog signal, a nice smooth signal like I had just shown with the music slide, this would be what's called a square wave, or a digital signal. So we'll be comparing the idea of an analog signal and a digital signal. So how do we, I'm going to just adjust this a little bit. Thank you. So how do we digitize music? How do we take sound and get that sound inside the computer so that we can listen to it again? And the answer is that it needs to be digitized. We need to convert the sounds into numbers. And what we do is we measure periodically along the wave. If you take a look at the slide, you'll see a collection of these measurements are shown on the sound wave. And then those measurements are converted into the ones and zeros that get stored into the memory of the computer. And then this is converting from analog to digital. And then when we play the music back, we basically just play those numbers back and convert the digital to analog. This allows us to use the computer to listen to our favorite songs. Another, what I think is very fascinating idea, a couple of the things in the first presentation, there was referring to the timbre of the music and the sound of the music. I don't know if you realize this, but I learned it later on in life, that a musical note is actually a composition of multiple frequencies. It's not just one note. And the nature of the sound, this is why you can play the same musical note on two different musical instruments and it sounds differently. Right? It's the same frequency, but the sound, the quality of the sound is different. And what makes the difference is the composition of overtones. And an overtone is a multiple of the frequency. So if we take a look at the slide, we can see at the upper left-hand corner of the slide is the primary frequency. And then if we multiply that by 3, we would call this the third harmonic. If we multiply it by 5, this is the fifth harmonic. In music, if we play the first, the third, and the fifth, we have a chord. And these harmonics are those notes. And so interestingly, if we take all of the harmonics, the odd harmonics, and we add them together, we get a digital signal shown on the right-hand side. And so I'm gonna if we take note of that digital signal is the sum of all the odd harmonics, then we can take a look at why we might need this concept called a modem or a modulator demodulator. So if we send the signal, this digital signal, what will happen is as the signal travels, the high frequencies are filtered. And you may have or may not have experienced this, many of us have. If we're standing out on the street corner, we hear a car approaching. We don't see the car, but we hear it approaching because it's got a very loud song playing. We don't even hear the song. All we hear is the bass note of the song. Boom, boom, boom. I think we've all experienced this. But then as the car approaches, then we can hear all of the elements of the song. Right? So in the same way that when the sound is traveling a distance, we can't hear the whole song. If we try to send a digital signal a great distance, the computer won't be able to understand it for the same reason, that the high frequencies are filtered out, and that causes the signal to be distorted. The solution to this is to take the digital signal and to convert it to an analog signal that will be able to travel. And so when the computer wants to signal a 1, what the modem does is it modulates by changing the amplitude. It will send a signal with a very high amplitude to represent a 1, and then it will send a signal with a lower amplitude to represent a 0. And this is both how Wi-Fi works, and also if you have internet at your home through cable, cable modems work in this way as well. And even the term modulation is something that's from music. When a singer is singing a note, they may add some vibrato to their to change the nature of the sound. This is called modulating the note. A little bit, thank you so much. A little bit from, I apologize, I left one idea out that I wanted to describe, and I'll just mention it briefly. So those components inside the computer, they need to be synchronized when they interact with each other. And when I teach our students about that, I relate this inside the computer. There's something called the system clock, which is that a digital signal that's used to synchronize the operations inside the computer. And I relate it to the drummer in the band. So the drummer is keeping the tempo by playing that bass drum, and all of the other musicians are listening to the drummer and keeping in time with the drummer. And so that system clock inside the computer is kind of like the drummer in the band. Okay. So to wrap up the PowerPoint presentation, I just want to share a couple of ideas, lessons learned over a number of years playing music locally. The first is that you need to understand how you fit in, right? Where can you fit in? Not everybody's taste in music is the same. We saw a great contrast in the first two presentations. When you hear me play, it's going to be yet another take on music. So how do you best fit in? Another is that from playing, very often I will get a gig by playing a gig. So I've learned that every single performance is an audition. You want to approach everyone like, I could be getting a great gig if I do well at this gig. Right? That we need to promote both before, during, and after the gig. At one point, I'm blessed today that I have a lot of work. I'm very busy playing music when I'm not teaching here, and I love doing both things, teaching here and playing music. But at one point when I was trying to get more work, my sister Patty suggested that I pass out pens. She said, Jim, people throw away business cards, but they don't throw away pens. So I have a very, in fact, one of my followers or fans actually had my pen design tattooed on her ankle. It was kind of impressive. So promotion. And then there's an economic concept, of supply and demand, and also this comment of less is more. The idea, I think at one point, the idea if you lower the tax rate, there'll be business will increase and you'll get more tax revenue, that type of thing. I've discovered that if I don't overcharge for the services of playing, then I end up getting more work. Right? So understanding that concept of supply and demand, and realizing that there's other people who are vying for the gig as well. And then the last thing is, every time I go out to play, my wife yells out to me, "Remember, it's all about the people." And I think when you watch some people perform, you can see that they're very introspective, and it's all about them. They're what they're doing. And my wife reminds me. I listen to my wife. Happy wife, happy life. So I try my best. If I see someone that I know, I often will remember the song that they like. I might not remember their name, but I'll remember the song that they like. And even if I have played it 1,000 times and don't want to play it again, I will, because it's all about the people. It's all about the people. So I think that's all I have on the PowerPoint presentation. Maybe we could do some questions now, and then I could play. Would you rather have me play and then?
I'd rather you play.
Play first? Okay.
So I'm using an acoustic guitar. You can hear that my voice has changed suddenly with the wonder of electronics. And I'm using an acoustic guitar, and I have some special effects. One is a looper, which allows me to record what I'm playing and then play it back instantly. And let me just give you a demonstration of the looper. No hands. Right? So it's now playing back what I just recorded. And now I can do layers. Multiple layers of sound. And do you feel like singing? Do you feel, if I sing a favorite, would you sing along with me? Okay. Almost heaven, West Virginia, Blue Ridge Mountain, Shenandoah River. Life is older than the trees, younger than the mountains, blowing like a breeze. Country road, take me home to the place I belong. West Virginia, mountain mama, take me home. Country road. Stranger to the water, dark and dusty, painted on the sky, misty taste of moonshine, teardrop in my eye. Country road, take me home to the place I belong. West Virginia, mountain mama, take me home. Country road. I hear her voice in the morning hour, she calls me. Radio reminds me of my home far away. Further down the road I get a feeling I should have been home country road, take me home to the place I belong. West Virginia, Alabama, take me home. Country road, take me home down country road. I want to die playing that song. So to shout out to electric guitar and shredding, I'm going to play, and it's just an instrumental section of a song, and try to show off a little bit for you, okay?
Please do.
I'll play one more for you. This one, my sister Loretta is not feeling well tonight, so maybe she can watch the broadcast on the replay of Loretta. So this one is her favorite song. It's a Bob Dylan song. is on your case. I could offer you a warm embrace to make you feel my love. When evening shadows and the stars appear, and there's no one there to dry your tears, I could hold you for a billion years to make you feel my love. I know you haven't made your mind up yet. I will never do you wrong. I've known it from the moment we first met. No doubt in my mind where you belong. I go hungry, I go black and blue. I go crawling down the avenue. Though there's nothing I wouldn't do to make you feel my love. The storm is raging on the open sea and on the highway of regret. The winds of change are blowing wild and free. You ain't seen nothing like me yet. I'll make you happy, make your dreams come true. No, there's nothing I wouldn't do. Go to the ends of the earth for you to make you feel my love. To make you feel my love. Thank you so much.
So are there questions? Ready? Yeah, here we go.
How many pens do you have on you?
How many what?
Pens.
You know I'm out of them, but I have gigs now. I have gigs, you know.
You were talking about the internal clocks in machines.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, are they ever out of sync? And if they are, like which machine takes charge and decides it's going to be the main one keeping time?
That's an awesome question. So there's a clock inside the computer that runs the entire operation within the computer, and if that gets out of sorts, then the whole computer is not going to work. But if we have two computers that are communicating, the connection between them can have a clock to synchronize, and so one of the computers is responsible for providing the clock. And as long as that computer is providing the clock, then everything will work. So the clock is certainly, and like in life, the clock, we all have to watch the clock to, right? I'd get in trouble if I wasn't here in time for class, so, yeah. Does that answer your question?
It does.
Awesome, yeah. It's great to see one of my students here in class. Thanks for coming tonight.
Thank you, Professor Peters. It was amazing. Before we all adjourn to the hors d'oeuvres and refreshments, please extend one more round of applause for all of our speakers and performers. Thank you so much, Richard, Jim, Chris. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and passion, but also your commitment to Quincy College. It means a lot. Also, please join me in thanking staff from throughout the college, including the library, academic and executive support, IT, marketing, and facilities. Their hard work and organization made this evening possible. Thank you. A big thank you to QA-TV for generously helping with recording and sound technologies. Whenever we call upon QATV, the answer is always yes. And to that, I can only say thank you. Last but not least, to all of our guests this evening, students, faculty, alums, staff, and community members. Thank you so much for taking the time to support not only our speakers, but the Quincy College. Thank you. Quincy College is an enriching, stimulating, and safe space for all members of our community to learn, grow, and contribute to a better world. With our 3 new baccalaureate programs in business, psychology, and computer science, and many associate degrees and certificate programs, we believe that education has the unique power, like music, to bring us together. One more thank you all again for coming, and enjoy the rest of your evening. And keep your eyes out for future events. Thank you.